Spinning out before the race, like that was 1,000% just to get on TV.
Everyone saw the spin. Almost nobody asked the real question. A car looping around on a wet track before the race looked like a simple mistake, and the clip spread across the internet within minutes. But days later on a podcast, Kyle Larson pointed at that exact moment and called it something no one else dared to say out loud. Larson watched the spin, and later he described it in a way that put the entire garage on edge. In his view, what happened at New Hampshire Motor Speedway was not a driver losing control by accident. It was a decision. Larson believes Carson Hocevar spun his car on purpose, and he said so plainly. I mean, spinning out before the race, that was 1,000% just to get on TV. The detail that makes the claim land is the timing. This spin did not happen in a battle for position. It did not happen on the final lap. It happened before the green flag had even dropped, during the one lap of the day that is supposed to be fully controlled. The race in question was the Dollar Tree 301, held on Sunday at New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudon. NASCAR had moved the start time up by 1 hour to get ahead of a weather system moving toward the track. The plan did not hold because the rain arrived early as well. As the field prepared to go green, the surface was soaked. NASCAR responded by putting every car on wet weather tires, which are built specifically for a damp surface. On shorter tracks, cars can race on these tires in the rain, but there is a firm limit. The track can be wet, but it cannot be flooded. To judge whether the surface met that standard, drivers ran slow-paced laps and felt for grip in each corner, then reported back to NASCAR. It became a group decision, and the drivers did not agree. Some wanted to start, and some wanted to wait. On the radio, the two camps were described as Team Thumbs Up and Team Thumbs Down. The rain made every choice a gamble, and no single driver could settle it alone. This is where Carson Hocevar enters the story. He is 23 years old and drives the number 77 Chevrolet for Spire Motorsports, and the Dollar Tree 301 came during his third full-time season in the Cup Series. Earlier in the year, he had climbed as high as 5th in the point standings, a strong position for a driver at his stage. That form did not hold. Trouble at Iowa and a difficult stretch afterward pushed him back down toward the playoff cut line. In short, Hocevar arrived at New Hampshire as a driver who needed a clean, strong afternoon to steady his season, not another headline built on chaos. What he produced instead became the talking point of the weekend. Before the green flag, Hocevar pushed his car past the pace car and accelerated into turn 4 to test how much grip the tires could find. He wanted to feel what the car could really do on the wet surface. The car snapped loose underneath him and spun in full view of the pace car and the rest of the field, with the race still not started. Over the radio, Hocevar stayed calm and reported the conditions. It's a little slick off 4. Right behind him was Joey Logano, who started from 21st and had a front row seat to the whole thing, and he did not hide his reaction. "Look at this guy. Look at this idiot," Logano said as Hocevar lost the car. There was an added twist to it. Logano and his Team Penske group had already landed on Team Thumbs Down, meaning they did not believe the track was ready. Hocevar was on Team Thumbs Up. The driver who wanted to race was the one who spun in front of everyone. NASCAR then brought the entire field back to pit road and delayed the start while the heavier rain passed over the speedway. Hocevar did not let the moment sit. He went to social media from inside his own car and defended the spin in a post he deleted shortly afterward. "I much rather test the track when no one's around versus green flag and people around. If no one else was going to test it, I'll do it LOL, does it?" he wrote. There is a defensible logic in that argument. It is better to learn that a track is too wet before a full field is racing at high speed than to discover it after the green flag, when a crash could collect several cars at once. At the same time, spinning during the most controlled lap of the entire day is a striking thing to watch. And the rest of the afternoon suggested his caution was not misplaced. Pole winner Tyler Reddick spun exiting turn 4 on the opening lap once the race finally began, bringing out the first caution and showing that the surface stayed treacherous even after the delay. The green flag was not shown until just after 3 o'clock, and the field ran on wet weather tires for the first 40 laps. Days later, Kyle Larson took the subject to the Door Bumper Clear podcast, where he appeared alongside spotter Brett Griffin. It is worth establishing that Larson is not a reflexive critic of Hocevar. Larson is a two-time Cup Series champion who drives the number 5 Chevrolet for Hampshire Motor Sports, and earlier this year on a separate podcast he praised Hocevar directly. Hocevar, honestly, I respect his talent. I think he's extremely good and fast. I like his aggressiveness even, but I would say it goes overboard a lot of the time. He went further in that same conversation, saying he's phenomenal. He outruns his teammates by a lot every week. So the criticism that followed did not come from a place of dismissal. Even in that earlier praise, though, one thing had already bothered Larson, and it was not the driving. It was the way Hocevar carried himself away from the car. For me, he's young, but he's more immature than what his age is. I have his little Twitch stream thing pop up on my Instagram feed every now and then, and I'm like, dude, this guy is like an 8-year-old, Larson said. The frustration, in other words, was already present before New Hampshire ever happened. On the podcast, Larson's concerns centered on the gap between who Hocevar is and the version of himself he presents to the public. I don't think you have to totally neuter him, but I almost feel like he's at the point now where he's like doing it even like it's not really him. It's a piece of him, but he's going above what he really is, Larson said. Griffin agreed and framed it in blunt terms. It's like he's playing a game out there. He's doing it for attention, clicks, or views. Then Larson delivered the line that traveled the furthest and turned into headlines across the sport. Him spinning out before the race. That was 1,000% just to get on TV. The point behind the accusation is that it worked. The clip spread everywhere, and even the people calling it a stunt were still spending their time discussing it. Griffin made that exact observation, noting that the show ends up covering Hocevar constantly because he gives them no other choice. Great, he's getting attention. We talk about him every week on here because of it. He leaves us no choice because he does a lot of dumb stuff all the time. Attention in that reading is still attention, whether it is earned by a win or by a spin. Larson then moved from the single spin to how he believes Hocevar behaves once a race is actually underway. He does not think anyone is instructing Hocevar to drive into other cars. He thinks something else takes over. I don't think people are telling him, hey, go door everybody. I think he just blacks out. To support that idea, Larson brought up a sequence at Iowa that the broadcast did not show on camera. The camera didn't catch it at Iowa, but he was trying to spear Bell. When he got lapped for like the second time, he was trying to spear Christopher Bell for 2 laps. I'm behind him like, what are you doing? He said. The detail that confused Larson was the situation itself. Hocevar was already a lapped car with nothing left to gain that day, while Christopher Bell was a playoff contender fighting for position. A lapped car chasing a title contender to wreck him made no competitive sense, and that is what left Larson searching for an explanation. He kept returning to the same pattern. That's what I don't understand. You admit that you wrecked yourself, but then you still go out and run right through him the next chance you get. That pattern reappeared later in the New Hampshire race itself, almost as if on cue. After contact with rookie Connor Zilisch, Hocevar spun a second time. On the radio, he first pointed to something from practice as the cause, but after the race, he accepted responsibility and admitted that he had spun himself. Then, matching the exact behavior Larson had described on the podcast, Hocevar went right back at Connor Zilisch on the track, to the point that his own spotter had to tell him to be smart as he leaned on the rookie once again. The sequence lined up with Larson's complaint almost perfectly, admit the mistake and then repeat it at the very next opportunity. For a driver already under scrutiny for his conduct toward other competitors, it was a difficult sequence to explain away. Griffin summed up the whole situation in a single description that fit the driver neatly. He is Mr. Excitement. For better or worse, he's going to find himself on TV every week somehow, he said. Whether that is a compliment or a warning depends entirely on where a fan stands. While attention swirled around the number 77, the racing itself told a much quieter story at the front of the field. Ryan Blaney won the Dollar Tree 300-1, driving the number 12 4-4 Team Penske. He led a race-high 115 laps and held off Bubba Wallace by just over half a second at the line for the second New Hampshire victory of his career and his 20th Cup Series win overall. Larson, the driver making the accusations on the podcast, let his own results speak for him. He won the opening stage and brought his car home in 5th with no spins and no drama attached to his day. Hocevar, for all the chaos surrounding him, recovered from his early spin and his later contact to finish 19th. And in doing so, he locked up the first playoff berth of his career. After the race, he posted a note on social media reflecting on how far he and his team had come across 3 seasons in the Cup Series as the playoffs approached. That mix of results is the puzzle the sport is now weighing. Is Carson Hocevar valuable to NASCAR because every viewer is watching to see what he does next, or is he a problem because a large part of the garage has grown tired of him and wants him gone? Kyle Larson has offered his answer. He believes the spin was a performance, he believes the aggressive driving has become an act, and he believes Hocevar is now chasing the camera as much as he is chasing the trophy.